Hello and welcome to Bud's RPG Review, where I give my thoughts on role-playing games, card games and board games. Today's review is Impossible Landscapes for Delta Green the Role-Playing Game by Arcadream Publishing, Part 6. In this video I'll be covering the third chapter, Like a Map Made of Skin. The chapter begins by stating that events are set in the winter of 2015 in the real world and those beyond where time has no meaning. The agents are being pursued by Delta Green while being drawn closer to the King in Yellow. Unfortunately, they are too close to the power of Carcosa and are either destined to be consumed by forces they don't understand, become repeaters, trapped in the night world forever, or find a way through. They should have escaped Dorchester House and returned to a reality that there is something fundamentally wrong with. It's not how it was before. They've been touched by the King and now see the real world, a world where the play and those that inhabit it are the only things that are real. Our world is a distraction. The play goes on forever and ever with the world turning around it. Normality is no longer an option, and until they find the path to Carcosa, they are forever haunted. Isolation is a temporary escape, and they can only hide in the illusion of reality. The King hunts them, and isolation won't help them. We have a box out called In the Field, Stages of Like a Map Made of Skin. The aim is for the players to discover where they need to travel to, the Whisper Labyrinth under Hotel Brodelbin, and then beyond to Carcosa. This awakens the Delta Green static team that was lost in 1955 that still serves its original mandate to destroy those exposed to the King. It should ideally be done in 4 stages. Stage 1 sees the agents as fugitives on the run from law enforcement, the King in Yellow and Delta Green wanted for real and fictional crimes. Delta Green sees them as a security risk and the agents of the King want their secrets. Each agent is given an insight or power that allows them to see the path to Carcosa. Stage 2 has reality collapsing around them, exposing the lie and the impossible truth beyond. Any bond contact that has been tainted by the power of Carcosa, and the more they cling to reality, the more it crumbles. Stage 3 should be about the decisions the agents need to make. If they decide to hand themselves over to Delta Green, then they try to kill them. However, if they go on the run, then their path becomes clearer. Stage 4 as the agents realise that they are being followed and culminates in a confrontation with the 1955 static team. Deathless, unnatural hunters. The agents should then find a way to the backstage of the world, Hotel Brodelbin itself. The agents' transition from the night world has given them powers and insights usually only found in creatures from that place. Each agent gains a gift and an insight. They're on the following tables and can be either given to players or rolled randomly on a D100 plus their corruption score. It suggests that the agents should all have unique talents. The abilities are not immediately apparent and should be found out in play. There are things like the gift Forgettable. They look like nobody and are able to fade into the background. On photographs their faces are blurred, and if they are not fighting, search and alertness rolls against them are at -20%. A sample insight could be eating is gone. On an int×5 roll they realise that they've not seen anybody eating or drinking since they returned from Dorchester House. This has a small SAN hit and they gain +1 corruption if they tell anybody, after which they then start to see things as normal again. There are loads of interesting and frankly disturbing things to pick. The next section is called Courses of Action. Essentially, this chapter is open-ended, however it will soon become clear to the agents that they are being hunted by the static team and Delta Green, and reality will start bending in order to make encounters with them more frequent and to point them in the direction that they are destined to go down. It makes the point that it doesn't matter how long the agents believe they stayed in the night world at Dorchester House, only a single night has passed in reality. Any items they had with them when they entered the night world are back with them when they return, and everything is as it was the day before. On the first day back all is quiet and they may recover hit points and willpower as normal. How they recover their items is another conversation. On the second day, Dr. Dallin alerts the police and Delta Green and they start hunting the agents. News coverage of every type will be saturated with the story that they are escaped mental patients that are considered dangerous who violently assaulted multiple staff at Dorchester House. Their name, age and likenesses are accurate, though there will be no mention of them being members of law enforcement should that be their career. Photographs of the agents standing with empty expressions wearing street clothing will be published, though none of the agents will have any memory of taking this photo, though they appear real. If they are examined closely they can be seen to be carrying a bottle, though it is cut off from cropping. Dr. Dallin tells Delta Green that rogue agents turned up and caused all sorts of trouble, and they will assume that this is the same group that were to be eliminated at the Trevelino Mall. The story of them being escaped violent mental patients has been concocted by Delta Green, as there is less in the way of procedural hoops to jump through, and nobody will believe anything they say. By day 3, their hunters will spread far and wide. Their credentials will be monitored by Delta Green, as well as their bonds. Every time they use a cell phone, bank account or online profile and visit a known location needs a look roll in order to spot the Delta Green operatives observing from nearby, monitoring their phone or watching their online activity. If their roll fails, they will be surprised by the Delta Green zip team. More on them in a bit. If they move through Boston without disguises, they risk being spotted by the general public, and look is checked hourly to avoid this. Failure indicates that people start videoing them, photographing them, and within 2d6 minutes, the police will arrive to arrest them. If they fumble a roll, they don't even notice that they have been seen. If they move outside Boston, then they are safe from detection. Booking any kind of travel using a monitored method will result in 10 police officers waiting for them when they arrive to travel. In an airport, this will be after the security checkpoint, so the agents will be unarmed. At this stage, the normal world is collapsing around them, and the longer they stay there, the more they are pointed towards Hotel Brodelbin. Everything they interact with will tell them to go to the hotel and follow the instructions in Abigail's note. For example, a closet will become randomly filled with Hotel Brodelbin letterhead paper, or a blank-faced courier will deliver a portfolio of renovations to Hotel Brodelbin, with each marked A. Darabondi. You get the idea. It soon becomes apparent that the entire world has been corrupted by the forces of Carcosa. If the agents continue to resist, then even more obvious things will happen. They may even get another visit from the Clockwork Child. Operatives of Mr. Wilde will start showing up to prod them on, with notes or threats, and at an extreme, the king himself may even appear. The agents can never turn away from this path. They are destined to visit Hotel Brodelbin. We have an op-in section called Gaining New Disorders. It's noted that the agents will have no downtime between this chapter and the last, which means no chance for a home scene where disorders could manifest. So in this instance, the disorder will begin manifesting after they try to sleep for the first time, and will be fully emerged after 2 to 3 nights. Contacting a bond at this point is incredibly risky from day 3 onwards, as the authorities are actively hunting them, and if the bonds are exposed to the King in Yellow or the Yellow Sign, then they will soon be lost under mysterious circumstances, causing a sand hit. It gives a few examples on ways to terrorise your players with regards to their bonds. The first example is ghost emails. If an agent tries to contact the bond via the internet, they'll get a reply back saying that the email failed to send. Should they go to the unsent mail in their drafts, then it will contain 5 pages of text from the King in Yellow. If other emails that have already been sent in the past are checked, then they will also contain passages from the book. It even suggests that mails sent to dead agents should contain the same, as well as mails to encounter group members and online print shops to price up Yellow Sign posters and apparel, and they of course don't remember sending these. This is a small sand hit. The next one is party. If the agent calls a bond, then as the conversation proceeds, a party can be heard swelling in volume that the bond can't hear. Just before they hang up, they hear someone cry out, "Unmask, unmask," which is a small sand hit. If they visit the bond, the noise can be heard next door and it cannot be tracked down. The next one is stand-ins. While speaking to a bond on the phone, they may make an ×5 roll. On a success, they think something is off with their voice. If they are asked a personal question, they will pause and then answer it correctly, and if an alertness roll is made, a voice can be heard whispering to the bond a moment earlier. This is another small sand hit. If they meet in person, it's clearly not their bond, but someone impersonating them, though they act toward the agent like they normally would. A human roll will show that it seems like they're reciting lines from a script. This is a small sand hit. If they kill the false bond, they will realise that the corpse is the right person, causing a bigger sand hit. Following this is puppet. If they call a bond, they need to make an ×5 roll. If passed, they notice a strange knocking on the line, though the bond can't hear it. It becomes more frequent, and those who have met one of the marionettes recognise it as the noise that their limbs make when moving. If they meet the bond at home, they'll be greeted by a life-size marionette wearing clothes similar to what the bond wears, and it has a face similar to theirs. This causes a sand hit. If the marionette sees them, there'll be clicking sound from the chest as it says, "What's wrong?" accompanied by hisses and pops, like it's being played from a small record. Normal people see the bond, only the agents see a marionette. Of course, if the marionette is killed, the body of the actual bond is left, causing a sand hit. After this, we have video. Should the agent chat to the bond via the internet, they'll get an email from number4clownu616@hotmail.com that has a video file attached to it that is 8 minutes 30 seconds long. If viewed, it shows the bond via a fisheye lens, and they appear to be unaware. Eventually they will leave, and a moment after, 12 small figures will enter the room with their faces unrecognisable. They'll move furniture and items out of view. The room is empty by 5 minutes 11 seconds. The room then goes dark, a gong sounds, and there's a drum beat. At 8 minutes 1 second, a tall figure dressed in gold crosses the room. Those who continue to watch gain +1 corruption and take a sand hit as the king himself turns to look at the camera, then moves out of view as the drum reaches a crescendo. A moment later, new figures enter the room from the left, and then it freezes on a brown blur. A search roll can pick out a shotgun and a mask on one of the 3 figures. The video will then be irreversibly corrupted. I'm sure you would agree it's all highly creepy stuff. The next part is called intelligence gathering. If the agents begin to understand that they are being hunted, they may attempt to work out who and what is doing this. If they look into Hotel Brodelbin, no address or ownership can be found anywhere. Ed Myler Wist and his law firm could be at the disposal of the agents, and Mr. Wilde may reach beyond the walls of Dorchester House to help them in return for favours. The law firm has a vast budget that can enable them to execute pretty much any plan that they could think of. Information can flow to and from Wist easily via them, and it's protected and unmonitored. Should the agents be foolish enough to contact Wist during the day by telephone, Delta Green are listening, and if they go back there, they'll be met by the police and a Delta Green zip team, once they've surrendered their weapons at the desk, obviously. If they ask Wilde or Wist about Hotel Brodelbin, he will say not to worry, they will end up there eventually. He knows this as he has already seen them there. We have a large disinformation section called Reputations Repaired. This covers dealing with Wist, Wilde. The tasks he sets them could be incredibly difficult and are always dangerous and odd. He expects payment up front and is happy to demonstrate his power in the form of a gift such as a set of perfect fake IDs for each agent or weapons with the serial numbers removed. They'll be given via the law firm Keyes, Norris, Ingalls and Grant. It gives a few examples of the strange tasks he sets, things such as arranging a fake tryst between 2 Boston residents that have never met, Constance Nelson and Lou Castaigne, provide evidence that their spouses think it was untoward but ensure that they never meet, or even convince Sir Henry Matthews that he won $115,000 on a bet on a horse race when he was drunk. The money will be provided by the law firm and he must sign for it. It offers the cash in exchange for his voice. There are a number of others that are frankly strange and disturbing. It covers what they may have learned about Melonia and the gold bug. This can be discovered in unnatural tomes that they may have found in the form of scribbled notes which discuss them and their unnatural uses, a phone call from an anonymous caller that describes them and gives an insight into the world of Carcosa. They could be tracked down to Deborah Carver, a patient at Dorchester House. They could crack open the satellite phone as described earlier, or they could even have a knock on the door and find a box with odd import stamps in it that contains green vials packed in straw, with each containing Melonia or a gold bug, with an accompanying handwritten note that says from one agent to another, Mosby. Visions from imbibing Melonia could include Hotel Brodelbin and hints on moving further into the night world. Another option could be the 72 demons of the Ars Goetia. They could receive a FedEx delivery of an oil-stained copy of the book that smells slightly of the ocean. The agent with the highest corruption could be accosted by Person and given insight into the nature of Carcosa and the king. There's also the use of preliminary invocation of Primumaton. Also, King Bale could call them at night, that shows up on their phone as Hot Brodelbin. He may direct them to study a website that contains the invocation and get a copy of Ars Goetia, explaining that calling on those powers will open many doors and answer many questions. If the demons are questioned, they could indicate a number of directions for the agents to pursue. At some point, agents could end up in the custody of the police, though as you might expect, this transforms into a bizarre and disturbing event. If they turn themselves in, they are met with sceptical looks and then the officers draw their weapons when they realise who they are. They are taken into custody, searched and then handcuffed and led into the interior of the police station. They'll move through it passing dimly lit rooms, and it soon becomes obvious that each room has a theme. Evidence rooms that can be seen to have shelves with strange bottles. Conference rooms will have stage prop doors, and the captain's office looks like a green room with snacks and sofas. They will eventually be moved through a backstage area with people standing in the shadows wearing elaborate colourful costumes, some recognisable as people like Mosby or Barbas causing a small sand hit, and nobody will answer them if they are spoken to. Eventually they will be led toward a light and thrown into it. When they eventually get their bearings, they'll be in a parking lot away from the buildings, causing a sand hit. The police have no record of them turning themselves in. The second is the false station. Agents that are arrested at a scene are stripped of their belongings, cuffed and loaded into a police van with no windows. They drive for seemingly hours, occasionally stopping. Anyone listening hard enough will realise that they stop near a highway at some point, and someone can be heard talking on a phone. Eventually, the van will come to a halt and they will be taken from it by multiple police to a building marked State Police. The surrounds is overgrown like an industrial park. The right role will notice that the paint is fresh and tacky, and another role will determine that the police uniforms are good quality replicas without ID beyond State Police. They are led inside to find it filled with stacks of broken down cardboard boxes from furniture supply shops. They're moved through to a main room, and a human roll will determine that the police are trying not to stare at the agents. Their handcuffs are removed, and they are then locked in an interrogation room alone. There is a camera in the corner with a blinking light. If it's tampered with, it will be revealed to be a plastic fake with a battery-powered LED. Not long after this, a voice outside the room will start loudly listing patrols and the like, and then be interrupted by a shriek. There's gunfire, laughter, shouting and screams at intervals, which causes a small sand hit. The door is still firmly locked. Eventually the noise will stop and it will go silent. Hours later the doorknob will move slightly and a child singing can be heard. If spoken to, it giggles but doesn't answer. The door will eventually swing open for the agents to find it covered with blood and viscera that is unidentifiable. Even though somebody opened the door, there are no footprints, and painted on the wall opposite is, "You have been invited, come, come." If the blood is examined forensically, it's found to belong to the recently dead. A search will determine that this police station doesn't exist and seems to have been knocked together quickly in an afternoon, which is a sand hit in itself. Following this, we have a section called In From the Cold. If the agents decide to contact Delta Green and have not been part of the Trivellino Mall ambush, then they are told to meet there as per that section. If they've survived but are foolish enough to call on them anyway, they're given separate meeting places to go alone. 4 Delta Green agents will show up in an ambulance, with one dressed as a doctor and the others in hospital scrubs. The ambulance does not stand up to scrutiny. It doesn't contain any medical equipment and has had some labelling on the side removed. It's clearly just a van with lights bolted on the top and given a paint job. They all carry guns and the doctor has needles filled with sedatives. When the agent is alone, the doctor will approach them in a friendly manner while the orderlies try to flank them and use their stun guns. Once stunned, they are injected with sedative, zip-tied and put in the ambulance. If they are lucky, there will be witnesses. If guns are drawn, then the operatives will pull automatic weapons from the van and shoot to kill. If they've not been to the Trivellino Mall, then they are taken there and interrogated, and then used as bait for the other agents to be killed. If the agents surveil the surveillors as somewhere like Dorchester House, then an alertness roll will spot 2 operatives, one in a striped blazer and the other in a Hawaiian shirt. Should they successfully follow them, they will end up at the House of Mannequins, as will any agents who are ambushed and captured. The House of Mannequins is a massive, dark industrial warehouse on the edge of town that contains hundreds of mannequins. Any agents who search this single room will gain +1 corruption, and an int×5 will notice that the mannequins are dressed in the clothes of people that they know or have met, including Bonds. This is a minor sand hit. If they pass a search roll, they will find a display on a pedestal of mannequins dressed exactly like them. The one of the agent with the highest corruption is holding a plastic bottle in one hand and a cork in the other, and a sign on the front says "Find yourself inside the bottle." This is a small sand hit. When they eventually leave, they will find any car they arrived in covered in graffiti, on bricks and stripped like it has been abandoned there for years. This is another sand hit. The scenario then goes into the idea that the agents may want to go back to locales that they visited before or have never visited from previous chapters. They're all monitored by the police or Delta Green and may or may not still be there. The first detail is Dr. Barber's home. It may or may not still be occupied, and if they didn't ransack it, then it is as it was left. There is, however, a new machine in the living room, the Clockwork World. This strange contraption is 1.5 metres long, 1 metre wide and 0.5 metre tall, being described as the size of a table hockey console. When it is found, it has no legs and sits flat on the floor. It's quite heavy at 100 kilos. The top is sprayed matte black and covered in tiny slots and hinges that are barely visible. Closer examination reveals little pop-up pieces of wood, tracks and pulleys. Some of them have figures and portraits painted on them, custom cut from wood. If an agent with corruption of 5+ touches it, it will whir and click into action, with small paintings of the agent appearing and starting moving down tiny cut tracks, and sets spring up around them from doors and archways into full cityscapes. An agent seeing themselves takes a small sand hit. It resembles an incredibly intricate mechanical puppet show. It will show their entire journey up to this point, including encounters with NPCs, things like the McAllister building, then coming to Boston, right up to the point where they entered Barber's home and discovered the Clockwork World, causing a small sand hit. But that's not all it shows. As they move through the world, strange figures will pop up on either side of their path. The new figures are wearing gas masks and carrying shotguns. They will chase the agents and will occasionally be killed by the agents, but then pop up again in greater numbers. After they appear, a large golden king will make an appearance, moving ahead of them and making the world pop up around them. Then at last they will arrive at a building that reveals a sign, Hotel Brodelbin, with the king popping up again to place a bottle on a shelf in a cavern. When they reach the hotel, the table will pull all of the cutouts in and go still. If it's opened, it's filled with a dizzying array of tracks, hinges, flywheels, pistons and the like. People, both known and unknown, can be identified in the miniature curios that are found within, and any figure can be pulled out with force, though a replacement can be found in the depths. Taking the machine apart takes days, and it becomes increasingly complex and intricate and can never be put back together again. The Clockwork World can be found to have nothing power in it, which is a sand hit, and those with a decent craft mechanic skill or agents who have lost 4 sand to the machine also gain +1 corruption. Moving back to locations they may want to visit familiar chapters, we have the bookshop. If they've never been there, it is as described. If they've been there before, Robert R. Roberts is far more forthcoming about everything. He will tell them that Brodelbin is a way station to the path of the king, and that people search for their truth underneath it. He can also suggest plans of action should they feel lost at this point. Encounter Group will continue growing, even if it was disbanded or destroyed. If they attend the meeting after being in the Night World, then clues can be presented there, and the attendees may even have more of a focus on Hotel Brodelbin and soul bottles as well as the illusion of reality. Going back to Dorchester House is ill-advised. However, if an agent receives the forgettable gift, then this could be viable. Otherwise, they would need to disguise themselves. Once inside, they may contact Timothy Bale and Ed Myler-Wist, who are both happy to conspire with them and won't blow their cover. If agents are captured during the day, then Wist's law firm may instigate a rescue operation. If they go back to Dorchester House after dark, they vanish and are never seen again. Esther Samagina will be exactly as described earlier, unless they are wanted people, in which case they will all appear scared and cooperative. This will, as before, culminate in the house being burned to the ground. If they go right back to the beginning and visit the McAllister building, they will find it largely the same, still owned by ArtLife and still awaiting renovation over 20 years later. It's been rented out the whole time to students at local art schools. The people who stay there report nothing unusual. However, the door to the night floors is still there, and those with the corruption of one or more can cause those who enter to once again fall under the sway of Carcosa. The current 3 residents of the building are listed here, and all 3 are related to people from the scenario's past. Lastly, it details the missing room. If they visit it, then it is filled with boxes of various items. Anyone who was present in 1995 can make an in-times-5 roll to notice that the items seem strangely familiar to the items in the shrine in Abigail's apartment, and each box has a diagram on the side of where they should be placed on a wall. This causes a sand hit. If they return to the room again after that, it's empty. We have an in-the-field section called Missives from Carcosa. Here it provides methods on how to get the agents back to the path to Hotel Brodelbin if they stray too far. It's designed to lead them further down the rabbit hole. There are 3 examples of ways this can be done. The first is telegram. An agent could find a telegram taped to their car door that reads, "Made it to Hotel B, bottle here, come at once, Abby." Those observant agents that examine the telegram will see lightly penciled lines with numbers next to them. If they fold the paper in numerical order, they make an origami replica of J.C. Linds's soul bottle. There is telephone. A phone call will wake an agent up. On the other end, a man and a woman having a conversation about a bottle who will mention the name of the agent should they try to engage with the voices, saying that they saw their bottle yesterday and then hang up. The last is text. An agent will start getting texts from a random number. They'll be to the point, things like go to Barbara's house, contact Wild, use Ars Goetia. It even suggests using an online text message service to actually send messages to the players. The next section is called Static. It mentions that the Static team was created in 1955 to clean up Operation Bristol, which had attempted to stop a production of Her Grey Song, and they were sent to silence all witnesses and was made up of the Delta Green agents Eric K. Carter, Virgil Griffith, Ronald Burback and Frederick Colwell. They were completely ruthless in the 10 days that they were active, killing many people to contain the incursion of the King in Yellow. 2 disappeared in action, 1 went mad, and the last one vanished in broad daylight while involved in a running gunfight with the New York Police Department. The team is still active, fulfilling the Static protocol and hunting down those who seek to delve deeper into the mysteries of Carcosa. The agents are targets, and Static will either force them to go to Hotel Brodelbin or kill them. They don't appear all at once, and are gradually come into existence as the agents come to understand that the player is at the centre of everything, and following their escape from Dorchester House, things start escalating. It suggests initially that the agents feel like they are being observed by a distant figure that can be watched wearing an army green face mask that can never be confronted. The next instance will be a foot chase that rushes past them, where the agent with the highest corruption notices that the person being chased is wearing an old-fashioned gas mask and wielding a shotgun. These may have already been observed in the night floors. The police chasing the man are dressed in old-fashioned 50s clothing and can't be tracked down, which causes a small sand hit. The next time they appear is the agents being startled by a group of men in heavy jackets wearing gas masks and carrying shotguns down the middle of the street that passers-by seem to ignore. They will pass really close but won't see the agents, and can be heard shouting in muffled tones to each other under the masks. If they're intercepted, the agents feel lightheaded and ill, losing half of their willpower and sit down on the floor hard. When they gather their bearings again, the men are gone, and that causes a sand hit. Further down the line, an agent, while on a train or in motion in some way, will see a man in the distance whose head is on fire. The figure seems to be laughing, which is a sand hit. They seem to be wearing a Korean War-era uniform of China or North Korea. The figure then vanishes from sight when a wall or the like is passed. The next incident is an agent being awakened by a phone call late at night. A man who sounds frantic whispers, "He's in the other room." If asked who it is, they will say, "It's Caldwell." The voice can be questioned about static and Operation Bristol, as well as reports on Her Grey Song from 1955. They'll be interrupted by hollow booms that cause static on the line, and then the voice will scream, "I'm locked in the bathroom, I think," and then the door will rattle and the phone fills with inhuman laughter and the voice whimpering. This is a small sand hit. He will say, "Tell them that the team failed, we can't," and then there will be gurgling screams, which is another sand hit. Creepily, the next time they use a phone, whoever they were speaking to is in their voice, which will answer the way that they did in the middle of the night. This is a minor sand hit. Eventually the voice will go quiet and then say, "Still there?" as it distorts to another voice, rising in octaves to sound like a child's voice that says, "They're all here waiting for you." Then it will say the agent's name, followed by, "I'm waiting for you," and then it starts laughing and changing so it sounds like a machine. This is another sand hit. Another example is called arguments. An agent will encounter two entirely normal people having a serious argument that is bordering on violence. One of them will shout, "Look at it, you need to see it to understand," and the other will refuse, and then both will have a violent struggle. One puts the other in a headlock and shouts, "Look at it, look," pulling something out of their pocket. As they struggle, it is dropped. If one of the agents pick it up, it's a piece of paper with a yellow sign on it, and the two fighters will stop and walk off in different directions like nothing happened. This is a minor sand hit. They will deny fighting or even knowing each other if they are questioned. If the agent doesn't look at the paper, an identical argument will start the next day and the next until someone sees the yellow sign. The last example given is called knife. While somewhere isolated, an agent is attacked suddenly by a man with a knife coming from nowhere and tackling them, even from a dead angle, trying to shove the knife in the agent's face. It does 2d4 damage if it hits, ripping their cheek and leaving a huge scar. This causes a sand hit. While struggling, a high-pitched distorted voice shouts something in Chinese, and the air will smell of burning and meat. If the agent speaks Chinese, they will hear, "You've killed me, I am dead." After 3 rounds of struggling or 10 points of damage, the attacker shifts its weight and disappears, causing a sand hit. The next part is called a final pursuit. The static team are unstoppable and will not give up until the agents are dead or have moved to Hotel Brodelbin. It will begin with the appearance of a lone gunman, rushing their location wearing a gas mask and a trench coat and carrying a pump-action shotgun. If the agents try to split up, pathways will bend and twist so that they will stay together and moving in the same direction. The agents can either attack or run, however each turn allows a static member to take a shot at them. If a static killer is taken down, it's replaced by another in the pursuit. Shooting while running is at -20%. If they run, the static killer is at -20% to hit them, and they can use either athletics or dodge to avoid them, and each time this is done, the agent loses 1 willpower. Events will happen in this order. Static killers will try to get to point-blank range if they're focusing on one particular agent, and they will duplicate until there are at least 1 for each agent. If the agents stand their ground, they may even become outnumbered and eventually flanked by static killers. If they decide to make a run for it, they will come upon a procession of people carrying ropes, pulleys and gear, moving in the other direction, wearing work clothing. They'll be pushing set pieces and carts and ignoring the ongoing fight. Anyone who passes an alertness roll will see that the set pieces are painted pillars of white and gold filigree, with some of the people being dressed to appear on stage. If the agents stop to look, then they are the target of the shotguns. As they push through the workers, they continue to be attacked, and the agent with the highest corruption is confronted by a smartly dressed man with a goatee beard. At this point, the static killer's attacks abate as if they can't find the agents. The man will hand that person a sheaf of paper and say, "The part is perfect for you," and then vanish into the crowd. The cover of the piece of paper reads, "Her Grey Song by B. Paget. If the inside is checked out, all parts for the king are underlined in red." They take another sand hit and then the pursuit carries on. We then have another in the field section called the Feel of Static. It stresses that the final pursuit should be terrifying, frenetic and relentless, and then gives a few tips on how to achieve this. The first is a shifting world. Walls should slide and move, doors can be one-sided and made of plywood, and buildings are merely painted set pieces. Rooms shift and move, and this should worsen as the pursuit continues. If they try to drive away, the inside of the car could be stripped and inoperable, or even a flat painted prop causing a sand hit. Bystanders may react normally to the attack by fleeing, screaming and running for cover, but as it proceeds they may start ignoring the violence, not seeing the gunfight, until ultimately it is only those infected by Carcosa who can see what is really happening. When the static killers appear, agents who try to hold their position will find themselves flanked by multiple identical killers, causing a sand hit, and the longer they stay, the more that will appear, with no limit to the amount that show up, with them being eventually overrun. It points out that the static members are repeaters who will come back again and again to serve the king. Killing them is as easy as killing anybody else, but they keep coming back. If one is gunned down, an identical one will burst through a nearby door moments later, causing a sand hit. If the agents make the mistake of unmasking a dead static member, then they are confronted with a long dead and rotted agent's face, with each one being someone that the agents had lost or has gone missing: friends, family, loved ones, and even Dorchester House patients. This causes a sand hit. Okay, so back to the static pursuit. The next thing detailed is into the back. The crowd will clear and they will find themselves in a dark space that feels like a theatre. Their eyes will slowly adjust and a door behind them will slam shut, and the silhouettes of static operatives still in pursuit will appear. If they flee deeper into the building, they will see pulleys, ropes and sandbags, and glittering eyes will watch them from the darkness. Smiling faces will observe them as they pass, eventually being cut down with a pursuing static team, causing a sand hit. Eventually they will emerge on an open stage that is brightly lit, with many figures there dressed in finery and sporting exaggerated makeup. An agent with corruption of 5+ sees the figures as people that they know are dead or missing, causing a small sand hit. The audience is watching them with an expectant look, and the static killers will follow them onto the stage, firing upon them. Should the agents have discovered the reports of strangers invading the stage in Hair Grey Song and Leroy and Jean in Paris, then they realise that they are those people, causing a sand hit and giving them +1 corruption. On the other side of the stage is a closed door that opens into the street on a bright day. When they emerge onto the street, they're surrounded by the noise, sound and sights of a big city. The static team continues its pursuit. The men and women on the street are dressed in old clothes and the cars are archaic. Around later, the agents will realise that they are in New York City in the 50s or 60s, which causes a sand hit. Another disturbing realisation is that they recognise every face as someone they know, though they ignore the agents. This causes another sand hit. Again, if they hold their ground, the static team continues its relentless pursuit, and if they continue to flee, they will see a sign for the mysterious Hotel Brodelbin. As they approach the final 50 metres to Hotel Brodelbin, they will realise that they are surrounded by static killers who are running alongside the agents and not attacking them. At this point, the pursuit is added to with 6 police officers in old-style uniforms who will open fire if anyone stops. Once they get to Hotel Brodelbin and cross the threshold, the pursuit ends, with a feeling of both déjà vu, synchronicity and accomplishment hitting them all at once. They're rewarded with a gain of D20 SAN and they lose D4 corruption to a minimum of 1. The main challenge of this section is investigation and survival. The agents are being forced down a path and the world is bending and twisting in order to show them the way. At this stage, merely interacting with the agents is poisonous, as the innocent become infected with the power of the king, and survival is only possible by entering Hotel Brodelbin, a place full of killers, liars and plotters, caught in the web of the king, and they must follow the instructions of Abigail Wright and find the bottle belonging to J.C. Lynch. Hotel Brodelbin is a strange, disturbing place, unlike anywhere else. If anybody lost an agent in the previous chapter, there are NPCs that can take over in this place, or maybe even agents that will be convinced that they already know them, having been their companions all along. Even an agent killed by static could be here, covered in blood but alive, with a gain of 5 corruption points and a loss of 1 or D20 sanity due to dying. At this point, all roads point to the same place, Carcosa. This is followed by the stats for the static killers, Delta Green Zip team and a typical police officer. The next section is essentially the crux of the chapter, Hotel Brodelbin. It explains that at one time the hotel was just that, but the depravity, derangements and obsession of the people that resided here pulled it forever into the night world, where it orbits Carcosa, being a crossroads of many times and places, pulling in those that seek the answer to the last question, why? The hotel promises that the answers are within its walls. Not all who enter this place understand their ultimate goal, or indeed the purpose of the hotel, until it's too late. More often than not, never finding the answers they seek. The residents sit in a loop where they plan and plot to find their way to the basement, where it is said that the Whisper Labyrinth lies, filled with bottles that contain names and secrets. Rumour has it that those who find their own bottle find the answers to the questions they ask themselves, though these secrets are both terrible and pure, offering freedom not found in the real world. These answers can change those who discover them and can cleanse, absolve or destroy the seeker. Many enter Hotel Brodelbin, few find the Whisper Labyrinth and even fewer find their bottle. This is the way of Carcosa, and it's easy to become lost and forget what you were searching for. It stresses that the only thing worse than searching forever for a secret is to find the answer. All are welcome at Hotel Brodelbin. They can always find room for more. Moving on, it describes the building. From the outside, it's entirely unremarkable, easily blending into where it's found and effectively hiding from view. In this campaign, it overlooks Madison Square Park and the Eternal Light Flagstaff, though not just anybody can go there. The entrance is 4 wide mahogany doors with appealing golden bees inside the etched glass windows and an eternally out-of-order revolving door in the middle with a hand-painted "Mind Our Paint" sign above it. There is a thin, bad-tempered valet waiting for cars who is dressed in a ridiculous red uniform whose name is Carlo. Cars given to Carlo are never seen again, and the staff inside have never heard of him. There are 2 short marble columns with gilded gargoyles on top that flank either side of the doors, with each of the gargoyles having a gas flame in their mouths that cigarettes can be lit with. Brodelbin has a sense of being a grand place at some point in the past, but that it is now slowly descending into disrepair. Wallpaper is that of a clown towing a dragon on a string behind it, and it is peeling. Rugs are thinning and the banisters are worn and pocked. The lobby is filled with battered chairs and couches, and the reception is mahogany with batwing doors behind it that lead to the employee lounge. There is a wrought iron elevator cage that goes up into the ceiling and down to the basement, and to the right of the front doors there is a narrow, cramped dining room. The stair carpet is burgundy and threadbare. Residents of Brodelbin can be found on the ground floor reading papers and books, drinking and smoking and eating snacks, and are serviced by bellhops dressed in red. Almost any resident of the ninth floors can be found here looking for clues on improving their situation or to find their bottles, and it is a place of distrust and eavesdropping. The clerk on the front desk is Elmer Lassette, a man who looks like a teenager and an elderly person simultaneously. He is ever smiling and a good source of information about the residents of the hotel. He knows the names, rooms and general disposition of every person staying there, and those agents who become friendly with him may be able to get access to people's rooms when they are not present, or even gain a skeleton key that can open any door there, though the price he demands is not cheap. He seeks his own bottle from the depths of the Whisper Labyrinth. He's not been able to find it thus far, and to complicate matters, Mr. Wilde knows secrets about him that make Lassette be at his beck and call. We have an up-in section called Leaving Hotel Brodelbin. Actually, getting out of the hotel is hard. The street outside looks clear and is the New York City from their own time period. However, members of the static team can be seen lurking nearby. They do not enter the hotel for some reason. If they do leave, then the same manifestations from the King in Yellow that drove them there will begin to occur again. They'll be hit with feelings of sorrow and listlessness, and their san is slowly sapped every 4 hours outside the hotel. It also suggests that the earth beyond the doors is simply not theirs. It could be a Victorian-style New York that has fleets of steam frigates in the ocean, science and politics are different, and the whole place feels strange and unfamiliar. This is the New York of Mr. Wilde, and he can be found here. In addition to this, the static hunters are still hunting the characters. When the agents arrive, they will find out that an open-ended reservation has already been made for them in their real names, and that they've been expected for some time. No payment is expected, though a tip wouldn't go amiss. They're given old-style keys, room numbers and tokens for the automat in the dining room that allows them 2 free meals per day. They have rooms booked on the 6th floor, and agents who have seen the missing room and room in the dream window beyond will recognise that their room is identical to it. This is a small sand hit. They are normal, mundane rooms. They can ask for rooms with adjoining doors and the like, and Elmer Lassette will accommodate them. The dining room is narrow and has a low ceiling, with one wall covered in glass window doors, with each having freshly made food inside them, and the prices will vary depending on what is required. The dim light and fireplace in this place have the effect of drawing those who have done something shameful there. It's somewhere they find a sense of relief. Guests can be found asleep in wooden chairs here, food half eaten or passed out in puddles of vomit in the dark corners. Workers can only be seen as shadows on the other side of the glass windows. It's actually fully staffed by marionettes, something the agents could discover later on. They can actually sleep in this room, however, it needs a con ×5 test or they get so drunk that they suffer a -10% penalty on all tests for these 6 hours the next day. Behind the front desk there's a place known as the back bar. This is where the employees take breaks. It has books and newspapers from the 20s and 30s, and an industrial fan set in the ceiling, and it always smells of liquor. Anyone searching the room has a chance to find a pull-up trapdoor that is unlocked. It leads down to the laundry room and the basements. The elevator is of Victorian design, though has been worn to the point of being held together by spot welds and metal clasps that have been painted black to match the rest of it. It clatters when it moves, and it goes up and down. There are no floor markings to say where they are. Brodelbin could have any number of floors either way. It has a golden handle and increases the speed in both directions, and can only be correctly operated by Guido, Charlie, and Tanucci, the bellhop. He's incredibly old, though works the elevator smoothly. He knows where every floor is and where everybody is staying. Should the agent befriend Charlie, he becomes overly friendly to them, inviting them to his apartment for dinner. More on that later. Of course, the agents could avoid this entirely and take the stairs as they go to each floor, and there is a small metal fire door marked for staff only at the bottom that the people who work here can be seen ducking into on their breaks. Anybody who goes in without invitation will be called out by a bellhop, and Elmer Lassette will try his hardest to stop them from going any further, though he will usually threaten to reveal a close-held secret of agents that persist. These stairs lead to the basement. We have a small box out here called Tracks in the Ceiling, where it points out that these seem to wind throughout the hotel and that they won't be noticed until they're pointed out, especially near the kitchen entrance. We also have an in-the-field box out called Life Inside Brodelbin. It points out that it eventually becomes impossible to keep track of time in Brodelbin, and focusing on it makes it slip by quicker, and if they're not careful, the agents could end up here forever. The inertia of the hotel can be resisted by doing 8 hours of self-directed action and spending D4 willpower. If an agent goes insane here, they wake up in an unfamiliar situation with no knowledge of how they got there. Agents will sleep and eat, but may go a while before realising that they haven't done either for a long time. Agents who sleep there have strange dreams, though they do recover willpower and hit points as normal. There are also no restrooms in Brodelbin, and residents will come to understand that they have no urge to answer the call of nature. Once they realise this, they take a small sand hit, and the residents don't seem to notice this. The next section has a map of the 3rd floor and a disinformation part called Brodelbin Residents Known and Unknown. It points out that any NPC found in the campaign could be found at Hotel Brodelbin, though it suggests that agents should probably only meet people they've met before, and those that they know are dead, even from decades before. The agents can learn things from various people. August Chastain can tell them stories of the secret tunnels under Brodelbin, claiming that they were told to him by Bale, who hath shown me many a secret. He can't remember how to get to the Whisper Labyrinth, just that he found his bottle there and it led him somewhere. Gabriel Castaigne never sees his father August, and can be found weeping in fascinated joy at the tracks in the ceiling and the marionettes that haunt Brodelbin. He claims they are his children and that they have learned to move on their own. He knows about the Whisper Labyrinth, but is more concerned with the clockworks. Edward Allard can be found here in strange old-fashioned clothing, his face bloodied and slashed. He has the yellow sign carved into it right down to the bone, which nobody but the agents seem to notice and which causes a sand hit. He speaks Old French and can tell the agents that his master, August Chastain, is not dead, but vanished after opening a strange bottle with his name etched onto it. He thinks he's in hell, and he knows nothing of the Whisper Labyrinth. Lady Triumphe can be found here, a short, stocky woman dressed in a full funeral veil. She will tell the agent with the highest corruption that she will read their cards at the masquerade. She always has a purple velvet drawstring bag with her, and anyone who tries to grab it will find their hands filled with voluminous empty black cloth which causes a sand hit. Ian F. de Craig is found wearing a striped prison outfit with wire frame glasses. He will follow the agent in an annoying manner, asking to be brought to the king, and will eventually be dragged off shrieking by bellhops. He will be found later on, passed out in the dining room. He's heard of soul bottles but not the Whisper Labyrinth, and will tell them that each bottle holds a perfect secret waiting inside for the person named. There's Miriam Darabondi, an achingly skinny crone with thinning grey hair. She wears a nightgown and slippers and has an IV line on a stand that she tows behind her. She will say that she is here to see her son who is staying there and to clear his name that the police have framed for murders. She never sees him and has never heard of the Whisper Labyrinth. We also have Adrienne Darabondi. She wears too much makeup and has empty eyes. She will boast to the agent with the highest corruption that her nephew is the heir to a huge kingdom in Europe called Caracas. Henry Lundeen is the fat man wearing silver robes and carrying a plain white mask everywhere that the agents may have seen at various points. He will say he has a meeting with the king and that he found a daughter here in his New York house late one evening. He's heard of bottles that open the mind and also the King in Yellow, but has never heard of the Whisper Labyrinth. There's Emelina Fitzroy. She wears a nightgown and is pale with black hair and seems quite comfortable here. She knows of the Whisper Labyrinth but doesn't know how to get there, also knowing that each person has a soul bottle. She will also claim to have seen Abigail Wright and her author friend, but that they both vanish beneath the hotel. We have Private Ruben G. Labalas, a shell-shocked young man wearing army fatigues, a German winter jacket and dragging a rifle. He says he was involved in combat in a big French abode with doors everywhere but woke up here. He knows nothing of the Whisper Labyrinth and wants to leave Hotel Brodelbin. He's beginning to suspect that he didn't survive the French place. Lastly, we have Louisa Reggie, a wispy middle-aged hippie who looks shabby and wanders around in a daze. She has ligature marks on her neck like she's been strangled, though her hair hides this. She's searching for her boyfriend Victor and knows nothing of the Whisper Labyrinth. Next, we move on to the basements. All of the staff live here, and underneath the lobby are dozens of tiny apartments. The ceiling above is bowed wood that is stained in places, and it's incredibly noisy. Many of the staff can be found down here at various points smoking and reading newspapers, always from the 1930s. The distant sound of music, sex and parties can be heard, and finding a particular apartment is hard. Only agents with a corruption of 5+ can navigate correctly. They're otherwise indistinguishable and always locked. A staircase continues down into the sub-basement of the hotel, with just a velvet rope stopping people going further. It details Charlie's apartment. This belongs to the lift operator. It is packed from front to back with handmade wooden dolls, all around 1/2 metre tall, that he calls his hobby. They have movable limbs tied with yarn and features drawn on with a pen, all hanging from metal hooks on the wall. They can be recognised as various people such as Mark Rourke or Abigail Wright, and even the agents themselves. The dinner he serves is a stew of some type. He will string them along with promises of new information and try to guilt-trip them into coming again. He's seen a lot and knows people go down to the basements, taking pulleys, lanterns, ropes and pickaxes with them, hearing that there is a maze down there that he's never seen. He will ask if the agents have seen the puppets yet, mentioning the tracks in the ceiling and the marionettes that hang from strings. We have an exeunt section called the laundry chute. Next to the stairs in the basement is a burgundy rug that acts as a landing pad for the laundry that drops from a chute in the ceiling. There's a punch card clock on the wall that has cards for familiar names such as Barbus, Darabondi and the like. There's modern clothing amongst blood-stained sheets and other strange items, as well as costume-like clothing, such as gangsters or businessmen, the type worn on stage with representations of pockets instead of actual pockets. Those agents that visited the Samagina residence will recognise them as being Esther's work. If they look up the laundry chute, they see a shadowed face looking back at them. This whole episode is explained in a previous video and is actually the agents looking at themselves in the past. If they've not visited her house, then it's Esther, even if she's dead. She will shout, "The costumes are done, more tomorrow." This has a small sand hit. The person responsible for sorting out the laundry is Dorothy Harris. Even in the heat, she is always dressed in a full bellhop uniform. She gathers the laundry and drops it into carts and puts the costumes on hangers on the wall. She doesn't speak unless spoken to, and fully understands she is trapped here forever, encouraging agents to leave while they still can. She knows about the tunnels, though not where they are, as she's only been down about 10 floors. She will, on occasion, take the costumes down to the marionette ballroom and won't object to being followed, though will warn against it. Just off the laundry room is the entrance to the upstairs kitchen, though it's probably not as imagined. The hallway stops at a wall, and there are metal rings on the ground and ceiling like portholes that each have a steel iris around 1/2 metre wide. Tracks are cut from the edge of each ring and wind out of the hallway. Other tracks lead to single doors and on to mostly empty rooms. Any agent with a corruption of 5+ who makes a look roll while watching the rings hears a clanking and the upper iris opens. Tiny strings snake down and then the floor iris opens and a marionette dressed like a chef floats up and hooks onto the strings. This is a small sand hit. If this is interrupted, then the marionette will come alive and fight, fleeing down the hallway if it needs to. Any attempt to get into the irises results in injury. We have a section called More Basements. As you might expect, the basements underneath Hotel Brodelbin continue downward, floor upon floor of flickering bulb-lit passageways and alcoves. There are dusty music halls that lie in ruin, forgotten libraries, and it goes on into the deep, dark depths. The more time agents spend down here, the more they begin feeling like they are being watched, and they become more paranoid, hearing sounds they can't explain, dragging noises on carpet, things will block their path, and shadows of hooded figures will be cast upon hallways. If agents stray from their group, they may even meet the king himself. There are a number of strange rooms, and handlers are encouraged to create their own bizarre and disturbing places, and they're infinite in number. We have the Arboretum. Even though it's deep underground, it looks like a Victorian arboretum filled with plants and shrubs. The ceiling is built of ribs of curved metal interconnected with frosted glass, with tightly packed sand beyond, giving the impression that it's been buried underground. Mark Rourke can be found down here, dressed in spelunking gear, as he wrongly believes there is an entrance to the Whisper Labyrinth contained within. He will claim he saw a Negro in a red robe, filling a small silver snuff case with something in the corner, running off before he could be spoken to. If shouting happens here, or a firearm is discharged, then there's a chance that the glass ceiling may crack, spilling sand onto the floor. This torrent can be dodged, and those failing become trapped and require a strength ×5 roll to escape. If the sand is closely examined, it can be found to actually be billions of tiny, yellowed baby teeth causing a sand hit. The next is the drowning room. Asa Darabondi can be found here just after murdering another child. He'll be sat wide-eyed and out of breath over a large washtub. The floor is covered in water and a small body floats within. If the agents added anything to Louis Post's painting earlier on, it can be found here. If he is startled, he will stumble backwards. If an agent makes the mistake of trying to pull the body out of the water, they find themselves suddenly plunged into it, potentially drowning. If they drown in front of their companions, there is a sand hit. If they survive, they vomit up sand, hair and water for D4 turns and the body has vanished. If Darabondi is questioned, he will confess to having the dream again where the king told him to kill children, explaining that he doesn't want to anymore. If they kill him, they will take the sand loss for violence, but he will show up again later on. The last room detail is the marionette ballroom. This is a huge place with thousands of tracks in the ceiling, with hundreds of marionettes hanging from them. Some are dressed as bellhops and normal people, but many are naked. Esther Samagina's sewing work can be seen on display here. An agent with a corruption of 5+ can stare the marionettes. If they touch them, they take a sand hit as they lurch to life and try to kill anyone they can. If they kill an agent, then they will take their clothes off and dress as them, causing another sand hit. So now we move on to the paths of the Whisper Labyrinth. There are various ways of getting to the Whisper Labyrinth, but they are not easy, and it should be a big task or something that impresses the handler that allows them to eventually find the place, though there are some definite paths to get there. The first is cleaning house. The agents are told that room 830 seems to be eating people, though not many know this. Elmer Lassette will tell them that they clean out the room, getting rid of all the troublesome articles within. He will show them the entrance to the Whisper Labyrinth. Room 830 seems to be normal at first glance, though this will quickly change. It contains something called the sommelier. If the room is entered, then the people who do so are hit with a psychic attack and are disoriented and will suddenly find themselves somewhere from before they entered Hotel Brodelbin. Things like a gathering for another mission, a long airplane fight, or at a bar after the funeral of a friend with the scene replaying. If an agent resists this attack, they take a sand hit, with those succeeding vanishing from the illusion and losing a point of corruption. Those who fail a sand roll gain +1 corruption, and their resistance to the illusion going forward is at -20%. Anyone who fails 3 times is consumed by the room and maybe even lost to another timeline or an alternate Earth. If any agent escapes, they have the feeling that whatever power that had been resident in the room has moved on, and they awaken the room with around a half-dozen soul bottles on the bed and 2 incomplete ones missing the name labels. There's a strange machine here that looks like a lathe. It has an unfinished bottle locked into it. An agent who makes an int5 roll can recognise it as looking like the glass cylinder seen in Dorchester House. The machine will then start up and carve a new soul bottle. When the bottle is ready, a marionette will rise from the corner of the room wearing dark purple silk robes, and it has a silver corkscrew hanging from a satin cord around its neck, and it hangs from tracks above. It takes the finished bottle and slides out the door, heading to the Whisper Labyrinth. If an agent is consumed in the vision, then their bottle is labelled on the bed. This causes a sand hit for survivors. The marionette will then collect the bottle as before and head to the Whisper Labyrinth. Shortly after, a large bang will be heard from behind a painting of an old French villa on the wall. If it's removed, there is a pneumatic slot identical to those in Dorchester House with a cylinder of patsu in it. Drinking it does nothing. The second task they could be asked to perform is called In the Walls. The management needs ratters, i.e. people who will crawl into the air ducts to place rat poison and kill any rats they see. Charlie the elevator guy used to do it, but his knees are ruined. He will agree to take them to the door in the basement where the bottles are, should they do this for him. The vents are, as you might imagine, a nightmare of steel tunnels and the like, and are populated by a veritable army of children drowned at the hands of Asa Darabondi. Just seeing them as a sand hit. They're easy to kill and unable to harm the agents. Killing them is another sand hit. These are the rats in the vents. It suggests setting an arbitrary number that need to be killed and using them to showcase various rooms in the hotel. Gunfire is ill-advised and will cause complaints. The next suggestion is called Kill My Dreams. Asa Darabondi has awful dreams and wants them dead. In exchange, he will show them the room of a man said to somehow control the Whisper Labyrinth. He tells them how to find the marionette ballroom and instructs them to find the marionette of a woman with grey hair, once dyed black, and Cupia doll makeup, claiming it's his aunt. He wants it completely destroyed alongside anything inside it. When the agents find this marionette, it wakes up the others who want to add the agents to their numbers. If they open the marionette up, they find a silver compass inside its chest. It doesn't point north, but towards the stairs leading to the basement. If it's followed, it goes to Asa Darabondi's soul bottle in the Whisper Labyrinth. Should the agents give it to Darabondi, he's overjoyed and will tell the agents about the room of the sommelier. After this, we have golden birds sing only at night. Mark Rourke will claim that it's a species of bird that nests in the lobby of the hotel that is only active at night. He requires one male and one female for some reason and will show the agents the room of someone who knows the Whisper Labyrinth. He is a man that carries a strange green-bound book and on occasion a bottle. This man never appears if the agents look for him. The birds are actually sculptures high up on the ceiling in the lobby. If the agents manage to get at least 2 birds, then they instantly become Rourke's best friends. He will remove a golden egg from one of the birds, crack it open and remove a gold bug. He then smiles and eats it. This is a small sand hit. He will then tell them about room 830. The agents can follow the sommelier marionette when it leaves for the Whisper Labyrinth. The final task is tracks on the ceiling go there. In the middle of the night there is a certain hour when the marionettes in the hotel reset. The lobby and rooms become cleared somehow despite always being full of people. When this happens, marionettes will erupt from everywhere and get dragged back to their starting positions. Dot Harris will tell the agents that the sommelier will drift into the deepest basements every night carrying a bottle. If they wait outside room 830, they can follow it down there. Finally, we have the crux of the chapter, the Whisper Labyrinth. Beneath Hotel Brodelbin is an endless maze of hallways, staircases and rooms made from a porous grey stone. It can be entered via an archway in the basement and has a chill drifting from it. Agents may even hear their name being called from within. Once entered, there is a smallish circular room with 3 narrow hallways leading off into the blackness beyond. All of the walls contain shelves and alcoves that hold opaque bottles, thousands upon thousands of them, and no 2 are the same. They are all shapes, sizes, decoration and material. Each one has a name on it and they are closed by a cork or lid. They can only be opened by the person whose name is on them. These are soul bottles, with each holding the answer to a secret that the individual name needs to know. As the agents head into the labyrinth, they lose sight of the entrance and it can't be found again. Also, if anybody moves out of sight of their companions, they become lost, and the likes of ropes and marks don't help, with ropes found to have looped around something and untied themselves. Markings, if found, have been altered, repeated or even erased. They really need to stick together. They could hear other travellers, voices crying out, or even see other people in the distance that can never be caught up with. Mark Rourke is well equipped for an exploration. He's in room 591 and it is packed with everything one would need, and he can supply them with helmets, lamps, batteries and oil and the like. In return for supplying this, he asks to join them when they visit. If they agree and find it, he will sprint off and they may even find his soul bottle open and empty. The Whisper Labyrinth is cramped, uneven and windy. There are steps, ramps and odd changes in elevation, and they can easily be separated, and encounters like the paper tiger, marionettes and things like that can be used again if needed. The King in Yellow himself may even be found. Should the agents find the author's bottle, it is in a strangely lit alcove and is made of crystal. The cork is sealed with a yellow wax and has the yellow sign pressed into it, and the name on the plaque is J.C. Lynns. If the bottle is touched, it looks to be mounted on a mechanism. If it's pulled forward, a bronze clockwork wheel will spin and click, and then there's a loud cracking noise as it comes out. All agents present regain D20 sanity. The alcove will open inward, revealing a full-sized passage with steps leading up into mist and darkness. This is the way to Carcosa. Any agents who refuse to enter find themselves trapped in Hotel Brodelbin. We have an op-ed section called Effects of the Whisper Labyrinth. It points out that it's easy to become disoriented and lost here. It does not let people pass lightly, and it's a serious risk entering the Whisper Labyrinth in the first place. Light sources are not endless, and handlers are encouraged to keep track of how much light they have. Once the light goes out, the sommelier starts hunting the agent with the highest corruption. Line of sight is also an important consideration, and an agent simply stepping around the corner could become separated from the group. This is a sand hit and the agent gains +1 corruption. The ultimate aim here is to find J.C. Lynns' bottle. The agents need to actually state this, and the agent with the highest corruption can have a search roll every hour. Failure results in a manifestation. A fumble means they end up back at the entrance. A success means they avoid anything potentially unwanted, and a critical means they find J.C. Lynns' soul bottle. Unless they state their purpose, they wander the labyrinth for D8 hours, encountering 1 or 2 manifestations but never finding the bottle, and ending up back at the entrance. Should the agents get separated and 1 or more find the bottle and actually leave for Carcosa, then the other agents can carry on searching. The sommelier is a creature that is attracted to loneliness, melancholy and despair, appearing as a blank white mask. It will whisper to the agents by name saying, "Come and see." If an agent asks it for assistance, it can take them to any bottle but their own and then will bow and vanish. The final resolution is the agent entering the staircase beyond the author's bottle and moving past the night world and onto Carcosa, a place where even devout followers rarely reach. The agents, as we already understand, are special. They're invited. There's no way back except to travel on toward the masquerade, where consumption, escape and revelation wait for them. Lastly, we have the stats for Asa Darabondi and Elma Lassette. Okay, that concludes Like a Map Made of Skin. Part 7 in this series will be the final part and conclusions of the campaign. Chapter 4, The End of the World of the End.